special thanks to the wonderful company, Kern County Superintendent of Schools, California Resources Corporation, and Barbara Grimm Marshall for their generous donations toward Bakersfield Symphony education programming. Hello, I'm Kendra Green, Education Program Specialist with the Bakersfield Symphony, and today I'd like to introduce you to Maurice Ravel and his Mother Goose Suite. Maurice Ravel was a French composer, and while he wasn't exactly a prodigy, he was exceptionally talented at a very young age. He was accepted into the Paris Conservatory, which is a very famous and prestigious music school, at the age of 14. Now, France had a set of scholarships called the Prix de Rome, which gave the winner funding to go study in Rome for a year. During his time at the Paris Conservatory, Ravel attempted to win the Prix de Rome scholarship 3 times and failed each time. Now, unlike most people who miss out on scholarships because they're legitimately beat out by somebody who's better than they are, the panel who was judging the compositions labeled Ravel's compositions as too advanced. This caused a bit of an uproar because a lot of people didn't feel like he should have lost. In any case, he was clearly very talented. And no, he didn't ever end up studying in Rome. The Mother Goose Suite is one of Ravel's lesser-known gems. You know Mother Goose, fairy tales and nursery rhymes for kids. The piece was originally written as a piano duet for children. Ravel actually wrote it for the kids of a friend of his, and the children who played the premiere performance were 6 and 7 years old. After writing the piano piece, Ravel created an orchestration, and that's what we'll be performing. There are 5 movements, each relating to a different fairy tale. Let's take a quick look at each of them. Movement 1, Pavane of the Sleeping Beauty. First of all, a pavane is a slow processional dance from Renaissance-era Europe. So we have music for something slowly processing, slowly walking, and couple that with the idea of Sleeping Beauty, and you get something that is very gentle and peaceful. Ravel uses the woodwinds, and flutes in particular, to create the gently swaying, dreamlike melody for this movement. Movement 2, Tom Thumb. For anyone unfamiliar with the story, Tom Thumb is the son of a farmer and is about as big as, you guessed it, your thumb. He goes on all kinds of adventures, and in one version of the story, he travels through the forest and leaves a trail of breadcrumbs so that when it's time for him to turn around, he can find his way back home. Now, unfortunately, when it comes time for him to make the return journey, birds have eaten the breadcrumbs and he's left wandering, trying to find his home without a clear path. This is the story the music is depicting, a wandering Tom Thumb searching for breadcrumbs in a forest. There's a meandering melody with moving 8th notes always underneath. Now, you may not know what 8th notes are, and that's okay, and we're not going to go into it right now, but there's this motor of moving notes continuously always happening underneath the music. Listen for that. Movement 3, Laideronette, Empress of the Pagodas. Now, this was a story I was not familiar with. Laideronette is a Chinese princess who's been cursed with ugliness, and she wanders the world with her only friend, who happens to be a green snake. At some point, she is shipwrecked and ends up on an island of pagodas. And pagodas are these little porcelain Chinese dolls. And the pagodas make Laideronette their queen. For the music of this movement, Ravel uses something called a pentatonic scale. Penta means 5. So this is a scale made up of 5 notes. Do, re, mi, sol, la. Pentatonic scales are used in folk music from cultures all over the world, including China. There are a couple of other ways that Ravel pays homage to China in the music. Certain instruments that he uses are reminiscent of Chinese music. See if you can hear a gong about halfway through the movement. Movement 4, Conversations of Beauty and the Beast. This movement is exactly what it sounds like, a conversation. Ravel included an excerpt from the story in the score of the piece. The beast says, "I will die happy because I have had the pleasure of seeing you again." Beauty replies, "No, my dear beast, you will not die. You will live to become my husband." And the beast disappeared, and a prince more handsome than love thanked her for breaking his spell. Now, in the music, Beauty is represented by a solo clarinet, and the Beast by the contrabassoon in a very low and grumbly range. Listen for the harp. This represents the Beast's transformation into a prince. After that point, his part is played by a violin solo. Movement 5, the Enchanted Garden. Unlike the previous movements, the Enchanted Garden is not based on a specific fairy tale. It's more of a homage to the general idea of fairy tales, or the enchanted place where they all exist. When you listen to this movement, think about what the music reveals about how Ravel himself feels about these children's stories. Personally, I like to think of the ending as a big "and they lived happily ever after." I hope you've enjoyed learning about Ravel and his enchanting Mother Goose Suite, and we look forward to seeing you at our upcoming performance.